be giving us the guest lecture today. But before we hear from Dr. Syed, I would like to invite Bapak Mujahidin as the head of Information Systems Department to say a few words. Pak Mujahidin, please.
Ya, terima kasih Bu.
Good afternoon.
Halo.
Yes, sudah kedengaran Pak.
Hi, Doctor, I can hear you. Yeah.
Gimana Bu? Saya tadi nggak dengeran. Halo Bu Mahendra.
Silakan, Bapak bisa kasih ini.
Oh,
Pak Mujahidin
ya,
bisa
maaf.
kasih.
Oke. Ya, oke, terima kasih. Baik, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Mr. Rehan Syed.
Waalaikumsalam.
Oke. Good afternoon. Saya juga mengucapkan salam juga. Ya. Oke. Saya juga mengucapkan salam kepada hadirin semua. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat bergabung kembali Bapak Ibu semua. Suara saya kurang bagus ini ya.
Tidak apa-apa Pak.
My name is Mujahidin. I am a friend of Mr. Mahendrawati at Information System Department. In this morning, I should thanks to Mr. Rehan for the lecture on GLS Part 2, guest lecture series number 3 in this topic, robotic process automation inside contemporary themes and challenges. This GLS is organized by Enterprise System Laboratory. This Enterprise System Laboratory is one of 5 labs in my department. Saya juga mengucapkan banyak terima kasih kepada Bu Mahendra dan Bapak Ibu dosen di Lab Enterprise, serta seluruh panitia, Mas dan Mbak Tendik, serta mahasiswa yang terlibat pada acara ini. Next, we are directed and appreciate to Mr. Rehan as one of lecturer at this event. In the future, we hope Mr. Rehan Syed could join our department to another event, such as join research or join writing paper. We hope this lecture can give the benefit and can motivate us in conducting teaching and researching in our department. Finally, I should thanks again to Mr. Rehan Syed. I wish Mr. Rehan Syed and all attendants always healthy and happy. We invite Mr. Rehan in order to present the lecture. Terima kasih Mr. Rehan. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Mujahidin. It was very nice talking to you.
Terima kasih. Thank you, Mr. Rehan.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Thank you very much. Okay, now everybody, before we hear from Dr. Syed, allow me to give a few words of introduction about him. Okay, so Dr. Rehan Syed is his background. He got a PhD from Queensland University of Technology, and he also holds an MBA in finance from American University North Cyprus, and Bachelor of Business Administration from Near East University. And his PhD thesis is awarded on his PhD thesis on leadership in public sector business process management, a developing country perspective, was awarded as PHIS. How did you pronounce that? Best Australian Information Systems thesis. So that will be very interesting for our next lecture. And professional experience, he is currently in Queensland University of Technology as a lecturer and also course administrator for Master of BPM, a position he held from July 2018 to date. Prior to that, he also held a lot of positions in Asia Pacific Institute of Information Technology in Sri Lanka. His role ranged from CIO, COO, program director, head of strategic academic programs development, and also head of business school and senior lecturer. Currently, his teaching include various subjects. In postgraduate courses, he teach project management, design thinking of IT, and also research capstone project. In undergraduate courses, he teach a business analysis, business process improvement, project management, application design and development. His research interest is process ecosystems and complexity dynamics, process-aware leadership and change, digitally transformation, robotic process automation, BPM governance, and research system. Well, I can go on and reading about Dr. Syed, but his CV is quite extensive, so I will now hand over to Dr. Syed to give the guest lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahendra. You asked me the pronunciation of that term is
Yes,
called
that's very hard.
ACFIS. Is
Sorry?
association of it's called ACFIS.
ACFIS. Okay.
ACFIS is the association of head of schools and professors in information systems.
Cool.
Um,
So I will stop my
would
share
you be?
and you can share yours. Yes.
I can share my screen now if you okay with that. Mahendra, can I share my screen?
Yes, please. You can do that.
And would it be possible for the audience to switch off their mics so that we don't have
Yes.
the background noise? Just before I start, if you could confirm whether you can see my slides.
Yes, you can.
Okay, great. Thanks. So, good morning, everybody, and especially to the management of ITS,
Good morning, Mr.
Dr.
Rehan.
Mahindra and Dr. Mujahideen for welcoming me, and Mahindra for such a nice introduction. Is very generous of you. I'm just a humble academic, and that's what I like to be. And I was very delighted when you invited me to deliver this talk today to share our research work in robotic process automation area. So before we start, I'll just like to give a bit of an overview of what I'm going to talk about. Um, because of the very eclectic and diverse set of audience, I maintain the focus of this talk today on more of the information systems and enterprise management focus. I will be touching upon the technical elements now and then during my presentation, but I'll be all open if you like to discuss any technical details later on, either by emails or by sending me direct questions. So as Mahendra explained, I am Rehan Syed. My PhD is in information systems, focusing on business process management, digital transformation, and leadership. I am a lecturer at information system schools, and I'm also the course coordinator for our postgraduate programs and Master of BPM and postgrad certificates. The Queensland University of Technology, as we were discussing with the colleagues just before we started this discussion, is the only university in Australia and globally that offers full stake degree programs in business process management. So, what I'm going to discuss today is a very interesting, a very new topic recently started only 4 years ago called robotic process automation. Um, I'm going to look at what this is all about to give a brief introduction, bit of its components and issues. And being an academic, of course, I would like to also touch upon some of the theoretical or philosophical concepts as well. So let me show you the agenda. So I'm going to start with the common misconception about automation and specifically for robotic process automation. A theoretical perspective from one of the French philosopher called René Descartes. Then I will touch upon a little bit on what is automation from the purpose and function of digital transformation. And then I'll jump on to brief explanation and introduction of RPA or robotic process automation as we know. The next I'm going to look at what's the global trend of RPA, how industry globally is perceiving robotic process automation. And of course, the recent pandemic has got a lot of push towards automation, and that's what I'm going to have an open discussion with the audience if you have any questions or if we can share our knowledge. So followed by some of our research outcomes of our recent research in terms of 15 RPA challenges, which we have published this year, at the beginning of this year, and some of our current work in terms of RPA life cycles, robotic process automation and process mining, robotic process automation in human behavioral and trust, and robotic process automation governance. And finally, we're going to conclude by summarizing our key discussions. Um, we will try to make it as interesting as possible and as interactive as possible. If you feel that I'm going too fast, just give me a cue, wave your hand. I'm going to slow down. I do have a tendency of talking too fast. And as I said before, um, it's not that I know something and I'm passing it to you. Basically, it's a two-way communication. So I like to learn from the audience what their experiences are, what their concerns are, and what do they perceive as the robotic process automation. So without further ado, let's start. So let's start with a quote from Bill Gates. He says that the first rule of any technology used in business is that automation applied to an efficient operation will magnify its efficiencies. And the second rule is that automation applies to an inefficient operation will magnify the inefficiency. So invariably, if you look at the the results I draw from Bill Gates' statement is technology is just a tool. The efficiency or inefficiency, it depends on the way we design our business process operations and our strategies. Moving on, bit of a philosophical perspective before I go into nuts and bolts and mechanics of RPA. So René Descartes, a French philosopher and a scientist in the 15th century, has coined this idea of this distinction between mind and body. So what he says that the nature of mind that is capable of thinking and non-extending things, conceptualizing, etc., is completely different from that of the body. That is an extended non-thinking entity, and therefore he claimed that it is possible that two things can exist without each other. It means the body can exist without the mind, and the mind can exist without the body. Descartes further states that the body of humans are complex machine. So he's the first philosopher who actually view us as machines. And he further says that many actions, human actions, and physiological functions are caused by the mechanical motion of other parts, following from the mere arrangements of the machine's organ, every bit as naturally as the movement of a clock of another automaton follow from the arrangement of its counterweights and wheels. Now, for example, if you look at When we touch a hot object, our senses immediately move our hands from that hot object. Or somebody pricks us, we immediately shows our responses. So that's an interesting logic by Desecrates. So what he further explained, the logic behind that human has incorporeal soul that is believed to be responsible for all acts of reasons and drivers that dictates the mechanical forces to its will. And that's a very interesting concept in my opinion, because when you talk about the ongoing discussions on artificial intelligence, machine learning, uh, this particular statement draws a lot of insights into it, right? So Descartes believed that um, we think, we make decisions, we analyze things, and we make um, our body works with the soul, which is an incorporeal elements in our body. And he further explains and differentiate between the animals and human, which says that the brute entities like animals are also complex physical automatas, but they only have a corporal existence and they only have one sense, which is their passion. Whereas human are both corporeal and incorporeal existence. So we have the soul, body, and thinking capability, which makes us different from animals, and of course, in nowadays in machine. So if you look at how do modern computer science and people who are working in the area of artificial intelligence applying Descartes' philosophy here is by thinking that intelligence can be an isolated element which can work with any system. So systems or corporate systems are act as a human body, and the intelligence can be an isolated, which can be a group of a multi-level network which can create more knowledge in future. So with this sort of philosophy, I'll explain the basic concept what is automation. So automation, coming from the Greek language, the first word is autos, which means self, and motos, which means moving. So automation in terms of Greek terminology is self-moving objects. The modern origins of automation started from 1940, when Ford Motor Company and Henry Ford start having the production line of Model T. So in terms of automation, right, our definition is that automation is the application of technology, for example, machines and computers, to the production of goods and services with little or no human assistance. It means that if we have a workflow, then workflow should be able to perform without any human interventions. And that was the fundamental philosophy behind the modern automation, robotic process automation, RPAs, or intelligent process automation as IPAs. Automation is not same as software development. That's another interesting debate, that what is the difference between automation and software development. So in digital world, in digital transformation, we assume when we perceive that automation and software developments are two different terms. So very often we do get confused because of very thin line between the two. So for example, if some proportions and portions of a workflow can be programmed or to be done without the human intervention, it can be called as automation. So, for example, if we have an order to pass any invoices in a payment systems, and we have an automation engine which actually grabs the invoices received in a digital form from our clients, and then be able to extract the information from the digital documents, and then process it to the accounts and update the accounts of the customer, then we call it an automation. So software development is basically designing those big softwares, for example, the payment system, the invoicing systems, and automation will be interaction between the two systems to make it a workflow. All right. So moving on. few misconceptions about automation, and you will see this misconception I'll be hitting during the remaining talks of today's discussion. Automation or substitution. So, common misconception when we talk to people around Australia and Europe during our research endeavors, people believe that robots can and will take over everything that we do now. A lot of negative propaganda that automation will make a lot of people unemployed. A lot of misconception about automation is designed for people who are highly intelligent. You have to have a very high intelligent quotient to be in this field. We're going to hit this assumptions later on, and I'll show you some of the statistics uh, in terms of what the reality is. The second misconception that BPM is obsolete. So misconception is that now many organizations, you will see when I talk about the industry trends, that many organizations are having robotic process automation technologies, so they really don't need business process management. Why do we have to write business processes and business process models and do the whole idea of analysis, etc., etc.? Because a robotic technology can actually make things too fast, too good, too efficient. So let's not worry about BPM. That's the misconception number two, right? The third misconception is no need to conduct research on RPM. That's another interesting misconception which we came across, specifically from some of the very technical colleagues. So the argument they place is that robotic process automation is just another software, and how do we apply these technologies to human uh, but the reality is uh, a software, an enterprise system, depends on human intervention, whereas a bot may not depend on the human intervention when I explain in terms of the types of different bots. Most machines do not apply concepts like artificial intelligence, machine learning, cognitive intelligence, deep learning, and the work is in this domain, but still we are far ahead. So, problems are bot until today will not learn from experience. We don't have that level of machine learning capacity. Yes, there is a research which is ongoing. There is a lot of promising outcomes, but can we say that human will be replaced by a bot? The answer still is not really, right? Bots will never ever make judgment calls, or never be able to, unless and until we change the whole concept of computer science, right? Be able to handle exceptions fully like we do as a human because of our incorporeal entity elements. And bots will never be able to interpret meanings other than what has been configured. So bots will always work with rules, laws, which will be designed by human. And of course, the movies like Terminator and Hollywood movies about the computers are taking over the world are movies. So we need to just take it with a pinch of salt. Okay, so let's look at what's happening globally. All right. This is Gartner's very recent, what you call the magic quadrant. So if you look at the key players in IT and digital transformation, you can see that in our magic quadrant is all the robotic automation technologies, whereas the enterprise technologies are coming under the third quadrant, right? Which shows that how industry is looking forward to these technologies, right? So is on the very high growth path, right? The second graph, if you look at, right, this is the research done by Harvey Nash and KPMG, and they interviewed the global CIOs, and the finding explains that Improving business process is the second most important priorities from CIO's perspective, followed by increasing operational efficiency. So when you look at these two highlighted lines, bar lines, right? These are the two elements which we talk about in business process management, right? And the third one is improving inefficiencies through automation. So the focus of industry still is on writing, developing good processes. And I believe that the talk before this one was by Professor Hayo Rogers, who also explained how important is process redesign in terms of enterprise strategic objectives. Right. So RPA markets are growing. They are growing very fast, and I'll show you the examples of how fast they are growing. Right. So let's look at what's the status. So again, from KPMG survey, CIOs have adopted robotic process automation, and globally is about 24% of the total IT budget they spent. The first, of course, was the cloud technology, followed by on-demand marketplace platforms, right, like Azure and other technologies. And third is the RPA, followed by Internet of Things. So it's interestingly, if we look at the size of the market, which shows that the hunger for automation by enterprise, right? So Stata has collected this data over the period of time, and then since 2017, when the 2016 actually, when the first time RPA terms was coined, the market has been steadily growing and is expected to reach a $10.4 billion by 2023. Is one of the fastest growing market, right? It shows a very highly increasing interest in digital transformation processes, right, with automation technology. And two graph also shows the organizational appetite for market growth and how to use automation to drive the marketing and operational strategy. Furthermore, it also explains that improving business processes, increasing efficiencies, and improving what you call them automation, right, is going to be the future focus of all organization, right? Okay, so and of course, it's going to create a demand for the skills of for the people who are more inclined towards Internet of Things, robotic process automation, artificial intelligence, blockchains, and business process management. All right, so let's look at some of the other issues as well, right? So from the Economist 2020 survey, we look at that priorities of organization in terms of technology implementation to achieve their strategic objectives. And IoT and software automation, for example, robotic process automation came on the top, followed by artificial intelligence, blockchain, and then hard automation, for example, what we call it physical robots for manufacturing environments, and followed last one is the augmented reality or virtual reality. Now, what happens in terms of challenges? So this particular graph is a quite interesting one, and when I was reading the report, it mentions quite interesting focus. So if you look at globally, North Americans, European, and Asians, data privacy and security concerns came at the top in all regions in the world. So people do have concerns about how automation is going to handle how automation is going to handle. Sorry, hello. Okay, so how automation is going to get affected because of data privacy, uh, concerns with the security, right? Thank you.
I'm sorry.
No, no, it's all right. It's all right. And in our research, which we have been doing last 1 year, it's one of the key issue in terms of quality of data. Um, Data comes from different sources. A robot needs a particular data in a particular format, and if we don't have the right data, the robots will not be able to perform. Similar issue is the human elements, which is how do I ensure that my robot or my automation technology will be secured? They will not be hacked, or robot will not uh, deliver our corporate sensitive information to our competitors. The second challenge right now, as economics identified, was the deployment of the technology, is the adoption issue. And that came out a lot in our recent research, which we'll explain in the next slides. Right. People are genuinely scared of automation. And is not the automation, is the way the technology has been introduced to them, is the way the whole concept of awareness, change management, training and development, and strategy for technology adoptions being perceived by the organization. Because it's a very high growth economy or very high growth market, most organizations are making automation decision without understanding the needs for automation, without understanding the requirements for automation, without understanding the alignment with the business processes, the human resource capabilities, the infrastructure needs, and they are, of course, failing. The third element here is the lack of relevant talent and skills. Of course, how the industry functions currently, you have robotic process automation developer organizations like UiPath, Automation Anywhere, Pega Systems, RPN. There are many. They develop the technology, and then there are consultant organizations who have got their own ways of introducing these technologies to the organizations. So obviously, from the point of proof of concept to implementation of the first bot, things look really, really nice. But then, of course, there is a point where you need to hand over the technology to your local resources, enterprise resources. And at that point, people realize that they need to develop in house skills of analyzing a robot performance, skills of designing a robot, skills of technical issues and handling of technical issues, the data preparations, the process modeling and design. So there are many skills organizations are suddenly realizing that they have invested money in RPA, but right now they have a problem, right? And if you look at this, the difference between North American, European, and Asian market, if you look at the yellow line, we do have a huge issue in terms of skills and relevant talent in RPA and automation technology when it comes to Asian countries. It's 43% responded mentioned that they are lacking relevant talent and skills. The last issue is the resistance. And if you look at here, I mean, it's an accumulation of all the elements here. We study a bank recently, and when we were talking to the staff of the organization, staff was genuinely scared. They had fear of losing their jobs. They have got concerns that they are working with a software bot, so they're actually next to a machine. Half of their tasks are taken by the machine, and they're only working 4 to 5 hours a day. So they are scared because of the economic well-being, because of their social well-being, right? And we fail to address those issues. And it's not it's common to any technology, by the way. For example, um, when we introduce concepts like Uber, we thought it's a brilliant idea, is going to solve a lot of problems without understanding repercussions of systems and technologies like ride sharing. So right now we are getting complaints from uh, the municipal corporation and the traffic department that road traffic is tripled because everybody is trying to drive an Uber. So the idea was to reduce the traffic because people will share their rides, is not existent anymore. Is actually multiplied the traffic on the road. And of course, that lead to more of the greenhouse gas emission, the environmental issues, and blah, blah, blah. So just like any information systems over the last 50 years we have designed, we create brilliant technology without understanding its context, without understanding its repercussions, and without understanding the outcomes, right, in detail. And I like to draw some parallels here with the recent pandemic. So when COVID-19 started last year, people were start working on vaccination, and you notice that it took almost about, I think, still not, but more than about a year to actually have something called a promising vaccination that has to gone through with many human trials and tests. And now the latest news is the UK is going to allow the delivery of vaccination, and then we will see the results as well. But in information systems, unfortunately, a brilliant idea spreads like wildfire, and then later on we understand that, oh my god, this leads to this particular problem, or that led to this particular problem. All right, another important dimension of RPA is the data privacy and trust. Now if you look at here, 91% respondents agree that the data privacy and trust is one of the most important element when thing comes to automation, right? For customer attraction. Customers are genuinely scared about how organizations are using their data, how technologies are using data. I'm pretty sure that you must be having discussion that your phone is always listening your conversation. So, for example, if I am having my phone here in my hand, and if I am going to go to Google or Facebook, I will not be surprised to see a lot of ads on my Facebook and my Google interfaces, which are talking about robotic process automation, artificial intelligence, companies who are selling these products and services because, yes, we have an issue, right? Automation is taking over. So, automation or substitution. This is something interesting again from Economist survey. So, altogether, 54% respondents has mentioned that when the question was asked that to what extent do they agree or disagree that automation will displace human in their workforce. So it's a very high percentage of respondents who said that yes, they agree that their jobs and their economic well-being will be jeopardized in future. So a lot of common consensus is that automation will substitute human being. Now let's look at the another perspective here. So the 500 executives surveyed by the economists in this survey talks about whether automation is effective or not when it complements the human, or is effective when it actually replaces them. So 45% of the survey respondents from Asian countries mentioned that automation is more effective when it complements the human. It means that it augments the human efficiency. Whereas on the other hand, the Europeans are 50-50. They said yes, it may not. North Americans are more towards like Asians, and altogether about 47% respondents globally are more inclined towards that automation is more effective when it complements the human by not replacing them. All right, and finally, right, the new job roles will compensate for those who lost through the AI and automation. So yes, there will be a huge demand for reskilling the staff. People already executing skill development programs in European and North American countries, where the staff has been trained in terms of thinking from an automation perspective, thinking from more innovation perspective, etc., etc. So with this market projections, let's look at some of the emerging issues. Right. So what we have learned until recently. So yes, it has a 30% growth. In last 5 years, it moved from 2.5 billion to date, and is expected to reach $7 billion to 10 billion by 2025. But there are challenges that started to surface, and this is the research which we are currently working on. This is the ongoing um, data which we are analyzing. Uh, 2020 KPMG report explains that yes, although there is a huge interest, although there are predictions that the market will hit such a high by 2025, even today, organizations are using robotic process automation to majority at a what you call a proof of concept level. Majority of organizations are still testing the technology. The second issue is enterprise-wide acceptance. The employee resistance to change is huge issue in most countries. Uh, 50% is the current implementation failure rate. So organization who actually went ahead and developed multiple bots, 50% of bots are failing, and they're failing because of obviously issues which I'm going to discuss in the next section. The another important issue is the user trust and organizational buy-in. Ernst & Young 2019 has highlighted this issue that people don't trust their digital colleague. They start perceiving a software robot as a human replacement, and just like as a human replacement, they have an issue of trust. Now, for example, if I'm working with a finance application or a operations application or a CRM, I take it as a tool for me. But robots are not perceived as tool by the end user. They are perceived as digital workforce, and that creates an issue of human robot trust, right? So people believe that there has to be a trust between the two, and that is further emphasized by another research by Forrester in 2020 first quarter. The question was asked that what are the typical repercussions of broken bots in your organization. So let me explain what you mean by a broken bot. So bots work with rules. So if the rules are well defined and there are no variation in rules, then bot is going to work without any problem, of course. But in reality, the business rule changes. Business rules are dynamic, right? For example, if we have a business rule that in order to approve a credit loan application for a customer must satisfy criteria 1, 2, 3, and 4. But there can be exceptions to those rules. The bot does not know all the exceptions. So when an exception comes across, the bot does not know how to handle that exception. And of course, the bot is going to hang and expect the human to actually either update the rules for the bot or take a decision. So 58% respondents say that it failing of a bot has impacted the customer services. 51% says that it actually lowered the employee productivity. 51% said that impacted employee experience, because in our own experience when we were researching in one of the organization who was very much against the automation, because of the incorrect results produced by a robot, which was nothing to do with the bot. It is all about the design of the business process, right? They shut down the bot for a week and they did the whole process manually. 48% mentioned that is impacted the cost and revenue because they have to run the bot in parallel as a human being, so it doubled the cost instead of reducing the cost. And 44% employees actually mentioned that the bot has made more errors than themselves. All right, so that's what we have to date. So let's change the track and let's understand what is RPA. So what I'm going to discuss here is our recent research, which was published at the beginning of this year in Computer and Industry Journal. We try to look at the definitions of robotic process automation, right? And we realize that there's no one definition. There's no one definition, right? But in our analysis of data, we discovered that the purpose is common. Everybody is saying the purpose of a RPA is common, which is to replace human task in business process by software in terms of bots. And that is the software interacts with the front end system and applications similar to human users. We further divide these all definitions, what we discover into two perspectives. Perspective one says that RPA is a software which is rule based and primarily performing repetitive, high volume, very lengthy and mundane tasks which has no value addition. The second group of researchers and industry experts says that software is trained. RPA is a software which is trained with data, advanced, complex, or flexible and adaptive circumstances. And that's what you call it, the emerging form of business process automation technology, which is based on what we call the artificial intelligence machine learning. So RPA is different from other types of automation. It's quick to implement. That's the issue or strength of number one. It does mimic the human behavior, and we call at the industry level we call it monkey see, monkey do behavior, right? Uh, and it simply perform very mundane, very repetitive kind of tasks, right, to reduce the operational inefficiency. Some examples are grabbing data from websites. So, for example, if I'm a real estate agent and my job is to produce a report that I'm going to look at what is the market situation globally, or let's say in Brisbane today, in terms of rates and rent, rather than me going and opening up different real estate agency sites like domain.com.au or realestate.com.au. um, I can design a bot which is can open those website, grab the required information, put this information into an Excel sheet, and within like couple of minutes, I will have my Excel sheet ready, which I can distribute it to my real estate agents. Is very good in terms of transferring data between different applications, as say for example CRM to production system. So as soon as the client places an order is confirmed, the system will be able to copy and paste um, the details from one application to another application without any human intervention, and of course straight through process of customer orders, etc., etc. There are various vendors, but the top ones are UiPath, followed by Automation Anywhere. Now, Appian, which is a BPMS system service provider, also introduced their own RPA tool. Pega System is a BPM system. They also have their own tool. And of course, IBM also has a tool. So I have been talking quite a lot. Let me show you a short video from IBM Cloud. So this is um, uh, we are not here from a vendor perspective. We are vendor agnostic, and our focus is to provide academic details. So, but I found this video quite interesting for people who are new to this domain to understand that how really RPA tool works. So bear with me. It's going to be about 5 to 6 minutes of a video, but give you a very good idea in terms of how robotic process automation tools actually bring efficiency and performance. Today, we'll look at how robotic process automation can increase employee productivity and remove time and cost from business processes. We'll use an account opening example to see how robotic process automation, or RPA, reduces manual processing time, eliminates copy and paste errors, and improves customer service. The process starts when a call center rep offers a new line of credit account to an existing customer. The rep uses IBM Business Process Manager, or BPM, to document the customer's request, including specific details about the property being used for collateral. All other customer information will be pulled from existing systems when a sales assistant creates the account. When the call center rep submits the request,
BPM automatically launches an automated decision service in IBM Operational Decision Manager, or ODM, that determines the allowable amount of credit. Since the credit decision completes in real time, a task is immediately generated for a sales assistant to manually create the new account. It takes a sales assistant about 20 minutes to open this new account, but due to a 3 business day backlog, the account can't be opened until next week. It will therefore be several days before we send the customer documents to sign. The following week, a sales assistant opens the task and sees the information entered by the call center rep. She also sees the credit limit and a credit limit confirmation ID that was assigned by ODM. The sales assistant's task is to now use this information along with information from 2 other applications to open a new account in the line of credit account system. The assistant starts by logging in to the Customer Information Master System. She then copies the customer number from BPM into the master system in order to retrieve master customer details. She then logs into the line of credit account system in which she will open the new account. She returns to the customer master system and one by one copies and pastes all 9 values into the account opening system. She then goes to the BPM system and again one by one copies 10 values into 11 fields in the line of credit system, since one of the values must be pasted into 2 separate fields. She then logs into a government website to obtain the official tax value of the property being used as collateral. She copies the property information from the BPM system to the valuation website and retrieves the tax valuation and assessment date. She copies these 2 values into the line of credit account system and is finally ready to click Create Account. This causes the system to open a new account and generate an account number, which she pastes into BPM. That completes this human task and causes the BPM system to move to the next step in the process, which is to prepare the documents and send them to the customer for approval. The sales assistant is now ready to move on to her next task, after taking a quick break to grab a cup of coffee. That manual task, which took 20 minutes to perform, required logging into and navigating 4 applications and copying and pasting 36 fields. Now let's replay the exact sequence of events using robotic process automation. RPA is able to record all the actions performed by the sales assistant and then play back the actions on command. This includes logging into applications, navigating to specific screens, controlling applications using the mouse or keyboard, and copying and pasting values between applications. Let's watch as IBM RPA completes this account opening task less than 45 seconds after the call center rep clicks the Submit button. Using RPA, we were ready to send documents to the customer 45 seconds after the call center rep finished speaking with them, which is a much more efficient and effective outcome than having to wait 3 business days for a sales assistant to spend 20 minutes performing this repetitive and error-prone task. The benefits of using RPA in this example are pretty clear. First, we were able to respond to the customer in 45 seconds versus 5 calendar days. Second, we eliminated the copy and paste errors that often occur in as many as 10% of manually copied customer records. And third, we can free up our people from this type of mundane and repetitive work so they can focus on the things that humans do best, things like providing personal empathy to customers or using creativity to solve problems or find new business opportunities.
Right. Okay. So far, is there any question from the audience or from the
Yes.
organizers?
No, at the moment, I think we haven't got any questions, but I would like to invite the audience if you would like to ask directly. Oh, okay. There is one question. Please, Dito, would you like to unmute and ask directly? Hello, Dito. Ah, okay. Would you like to type the questions, please? I can read it for you. Oh, the host is not allowing. Okay, just a minute. I think I
Sudah, Bu.
will.
Sudah, Bu.
Okay.
Okay. Hello, Dr. Rehan.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Dito.
Hi, Bika.
So, Doctor, if referred to what you have explained, is my sound clear, sir?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. If referred to what you have explained, I can assume that after all, this robotic process automation is not really replace the role of humans, since the system doesn't do critical thinking or customer heart-touching experience, right? So, what about change management, doctor? I think it will be the issue. Let's say head office took the initiative to create this robotic process automation for branches office. What are your concrete formulas or what are your concrete steps so this valuable system will be well utilized by the people around, since it must be difficult to change the work pattern of someone who has done, let's say, 20 years. What do you think, doctor?
A very good question, Buck, and I think you are right on the money here. Um, Organizations are actually, in our experience so far, there are very few organizations who actually do a proper analysis of whether do they need automation or not. Issue number one, because of the industry pressure, because let's say in insurance industry, big players have got money and they have got the resources, so they go for automation solutions, right? But because they are going ahead and it's become an industry trend, smaller insurance companies also are trying to join the bandwagon without understanding the technical and non-technical requirements, and specifically they ignore the human element. So your question about change management, people still try to believe that good old methodologies of change management like Cotter's model or freeze and freeze and refreeze will work, but it's not the normal case. RPA and automations are different. There is a new change management approach which requires to when we go for automation solution for organization, we need to review our current methods of managing technology change. We need to understand the impact of automation both on human behavior, system behavior, and organizational behavior. And then we have to come up with the new methods of introducing automation related changes in organization. So when I'm going to talk about in the next section that what are the challenges we identify, I think you will find your answer in more detail, that currently organizations who are adopting RPA are driven by the consultant organizations. So consultant organizations have their own ways and means of introducing technologies in organization, which is called the silver bullet approach. And that's one of the reasons why you notice in some of the recent statistics which I was presenting, the resistance to change is a huge issue in terms of RPA adoption. And when we dig further and we realize that whether there was a change management approach followed, and it was to our surprise that where the consultant who were responsible for implementing RPA did use a change management model, but it did not work. And that's the area which we are researching on. So what will be the new change management model and its properties to introduce automation types of technology in organization? Have I answered your question or?
Okay, doctor. Thank you for the explanation, and I think I will wait for your next slide related to change management.
Sure.
Good idea, I think. Pak Fatah, would you like to ask your question directly? There's another question, Syed.
Sure.
Pak Fatah? Or would you like to put it in the chat room? It's okay, or you would like to talk directly? All right, I will also invite. Okay.
All right. So if there are no, you're asking the question? Sure.
Hello, sir. Mr.
Hi,
Rehan.
Fatah.
Okay, thank you. Maybe my question is, I see in Indonesia last year, 2019, talking about the Indonesian government introduced a 4.0 industry to automotive company. They invite most of the automotive tier 1, tier 2 to understand what is a 4.0 industry. But I found that the most of the teaching or share knowledge 4.0 mostly talking about automation. So the most organization just replaced from the manual processes become robotic machine. Not will process how to make the organization processes become automation. How about your research and how about your opinion? Thank you.
If I understand your question correctly, you're saying that most of the industry 4.0 organizations are going with mere replacement of humans with machines.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
What's going wrong?
This is what's going on, and this is what is failing right now. So if I go back to my slide, which was this one. So now if you look at 50% is a failure rate currently globally.
Oh, okay. I see.
So to answer to your question, automation is not just mere replacement of a machine. Automation is a strategy. Automation requires different aspects of organizational, infrastructure, and technological thinking, and it has to be aligned together. When we don't do that, we are going to create a problem, and we already are creating problem. And these statistics, if you look at, is 2020 and 2019. Organizations who actually realize that their automation strategy has to be robust. They have to think deeply to understand how the change will be introduced, how the business processes will have to change, and how the staff or employee, I mean, it's a very big issue, Fatah, in your question, right? We don't know how to address this by now.
Yes.
But it definitely is a research issue, which we are going to discuss in a minute. So this 50% failure rate, and if you look at your issue is low adoption, right? Employee resistance to change. These are massive issues. One bot cost $5,000 on average. And if you are implementing, let's say 5 or 10 bots, and then that's the amount you're paying, organizations are going with 100 bots, 60 bots. There is a large scale corporation in Australia which has gone actually more than 100 and 150 bots. So the huge investment is going into automation, At the same time, we are saying that 50% of these cases are failing. And when we dig down and we try to understand where this 50% implementation failure rate is coming from, then we identify that, well, there are issues. There are issues with the problems, with the processes. People do not understand the process modeling, design, and improvement capabilities. And
I
they
think
just think
so.
by reducing and introduce a robot, and we don't need to do any kind of process improvement. We don't need to think systems perspective. That is not the case. The another issue is data, right? So take the example of banking. Banking works with multi-channel service providers. So data will come from multi-channels in multiple formats with multiple entities and multiple definitions, right? Your bot has to learn how these multiple formats can be used. And when the bot doesn't get the right data as input, bot is not going to perform, it's going to hang. Because bot is a software. I mean, we should not lose our sight that bot is not really intelligent. It works with certain rules, right? So my take on Industry 4.0 is happening. It's going to happen, but it's going to take some time for it to get perfected. Okay. If there are no questions, Mahendra, would you like to have a small break and then we go to the second section, maybe a 5 minutes break?
That would be great.
Okay. So let's have a 5 minutes break and then we will see each other at 9:45.
45, sure. Okay, thank you.
Great.
Okay.
Ke Bapak Ibu sekalian dan para mahasiswa, kita akan punya 5 menit break. Silahkan yang belum mengisi presensi, silahkan diisi dulu. Kemudian mungkin kalau ada pertanyaan bisa ditaruh di chat, nanti saya bacakan. Setelah ini, Dr. Syed akan lebih fokus kepada hasil penelitiannya. Jadi kita tunggu dulu. Silahkan.
Break time itu
Hello, everyone, and let's start the second section of our discussions today. And Paco and Feta, thank you very much for your two interesting questions, and I'm really looking forward to more discussions in the second session as well. Mahindra, are we okay to start?
Yes, please. Can I just remind you that we will have until maybe, I don't know, if we can stop by 30 minutes from now, so we will have more questions.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll be quite
Please.
fast. I thought of like going a bit slow in the beginning, but I'll be fast.
No, it's okay. It's very interesting.
Thank you very much. Okay, so let's start looking at why these organizations are having these problems and the two of the questions about Industry 4.0 and change management. And I think they are very good questions because they're exactly the issue we are witnessing and resonating in our research here. So, of course, let's look at the corporate perspective. Perceived benefits, what a senior manager or CEO or the board of management like to see. Of course, let's look at number one, non invasive technology. And I think I agree with this point because RPA is a middleware. Instead of investing so much of money on developing new systems in order to bring integration between the two, a robotic process automation solution can actually do the performance in a very short period of time and in a very short cost. The second perceived benefit is the increased output and quality. Now, you saw the video that from 5 days or 4 days to 45 minutes or 45 seconds is really a highly increased performance. And it's true. We experiment in RPA in our labs here. And yes, we can reduce the process time because we're actually looking at the task automation. So, as a joke, I said that robotic process automation, in my own definition, please don't quote it, is my personal definition, is a badly designed process with a Red Bull, right? So, yes, it does increase a lot of performance because of the task level automation. The third benefit of RPA, which is immediate ROI. Now, if I need to design a CRM and have a what you call a properly designed automated application, it's going to take months and months of system development. But RPA, on the other hand, can actually you can build a bot in less than 2 days, and less than actually 4 hours. During the COVID, one of the organization which we were studying, because COVID requires sudden change of the process, and they used to have like 3 weeks process turnaround time in their bot development because it has to go through the testing and all kind of quality assurances. They removed those quality criteria, and the developers were able to actually develop a bot and able to produce and help the process to handle because of COVID related insurance claims within if 30 hours. That was the time we have given. So from 3 weeks to 30 hours. The productivity increase is above 80%. Yes, employees work fast, and there are two types of bots which we'll explain in the next slide, right? So unattended bots can work 24/7, 365 days without any problems at all. So we study an organization in Sri Lanka. Is an insurance company. Because of the COVID lockdown, staff was not able to come to the head office, and all claims were delayed. So their technical team was allowed to come to the head office, and they developed multiple bots to create the backlog. And till to date, the Sri Lanka was actually about 3 months curfew was there in the country. The bot ran without human interventions, and they were able to process all the backlog. So that's a success story, which is good, right? Data sovereignty, right? That's another one, because another concern, if you remember, we said the data privacy is a concern, is a legit concern. Organizational data is very important. Now, what robot does, it does not interfere with the architectural design of your databases. It simply grabs the required information from your databases without actually hitting the integrity of the databases, and then provide the information to our users. Increase capacity, of course, if you look at in our examples of that account creation process, the same staff can now create 100 accounts instead of 4 or 5 accounts a day. So it increases the staff capacity, it increases the process speed, obviously, and of course, it improves reports because the information will be available in a fast, easy to understand, and logical manner. And of course, visibility and compliance. That's another important element here. So, because of the reduced errors and because of the reduced problems in terms of human mistakes, robots increases the quality of output, which increases the compliance as well as increases the quality of a process. And finally, we don't have to agree with the final point, which is flexibility and scalability, because we identify scalability is a big issue in our challenges. But what vendors promise that robots are scalable. When you say scalable, means that how organization can move from one bot to multiple bots. Right? Is there a question? I'm missing something.
At the
Okay.
moment, no, I think you can carry on.
So one of the question I think what Feta asked me about the Industry 4.0. This is called the automation maturity spectrum. So what you look at here on the right hand side of the screen is the RPA. So it mimics only human actions. So for example, how do I open a file? How do I copy a file? How do I paste a file? And the bot is going to record my steps, create a script, and that script will run each time when I need to do that process. Right? So that's basically mimicking my behavior. The next level is called intelligent automation, where a bot should be able to mimic human judgment. So, for example, I have two clients, and the both clients look identical in terms of their performance, but I have a gut feeling that one client is not going to be a good borrower, he is going to fail. I don't have an evidence, hard evidence, but I have this gut feeling. So sometimes we say that the client is a politician. So should you give loan to a politician? Now, that's the question. So the bot is going to look at the facts, but a human will look at more than the facts. So human will say that yes, this particular client is a politician and he has been a not a very good politician in the past. So should we approve the loan or not? So that's a human judgment. That kind of intelligence is in a very initial stage today, right? So can the bot make human based judgment? Can the bot have machine learning capability by looking at the big data and the thousands of previous records and actually develop those decisions on its own, or can it interpret the human behavior? The top one, which you're talking about, the movie type one, the Hollywood movies like Terminator, it can actually talk to you like a human, is what you call cognitive intelligence, right? Which is basically making decisions just like a human. So where are we today? We are still here. We are still here, and I'll give you the facts why we are still here in few minutes. So RPA versus traditional process transformation or traditional BPM, both has got the same concept: cost, process reliability, process growth, scalability, and quality. But if you look at this particular diagram, then what we are comparing is the execution cost and risks versus process impact. So RPA tools, right, have got the low process impact because you know that the impact is all about non-important, repetitive, non-value adding processes. But at the same time, the cost of RPA implementation is cheapest compared to if you try to build a really highly intelligent, super automated system, fully automated system. It will be very high cost, but the process impact will be very, very high. So organizations have got this motivation in order to produce faster results, and RPA gives that particular kind of strategic objective achievement to operations manager and CEO, and that's why it is a darling technology for most of the management to date. Okay, just quickly touch upon different types of bots. First type of bots, we call them the attended bots. Attended means that they're going to work on the same machine as mine. So, for example, I have a bot running on my machine, which is this machine right now. It does what when I do my results for my student, it actually just fill the Excel sheets by looking at our Blackboard system. It grabs the information from the system, put it into Excel sheet, and I can create my different graphs to see the student performance on my own. I have to trigger that bot. It means I have to run it. Is my decision when I want to run it and when I don't want to run it, right? So there are many use cases for these kind of bots, right? For example, screen scraping, grabbing data for me to make decision, blah blah blah. And one of the weakness of this bot is that I have to have my screens always open when the bot is functioning. So if I lock my screen, the bot cannot find the user interface, and when the bot doesn't find the user interface, is going to hang, right? The second type of bots are called the unattended bots. Now, these are the bots which can work with predefined rules. They can work in a virtual environment and they can automate number of processes. These are the bots which can run 24/7 as long as we have got a very well defined with least amount of exceptions, right, in a process, right? So these bots can actually run remote executions, client decisions for credit management, invoicing processing, emailings, monitoring and control, scheduling activities, right? I'm trying to build a bot for me which can actually control my water irrigation system in my garden area. So I don't
Oh,
need to worry about every time go and switch on my, I have a device which connects to my Wi-Fi network. It gives me the data. Then I connect it to a weather system which actually tells me whether it's going to rain or not. And then when my bot can actually look at, okay, the weather pattern says that it's going to rain, there's an 80% chance. So I have a rule written that 80% chance means don't open the taps. So it's scheduled. So I give my plants every 3 days. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday should be my watering days. Currently, I spend almost about 2.5 hours to water my garden. I don't have that much of time, and I'm building that bot. So that's my unattended bot. It's gonna work beautifully, and if you give me about a month, by the end of January, I probably will run another seminar to show how it's working. And of course, there's a thing
that would
called
be
free
great.
bots. Yeah, that's quite interesting project. So the free bots are something like an unattended bot that we use it in terms of our proof of concept. They are into our what you call the bot orchestrator, bot studio to test whether it's working or not, and they are not actually working or production environment. And there is also called hybrid, which is the combination of attended and unattended bot. So there are the multiple types of, or three basic types of robots which are using to date. Now comes to the final part of our discussion, and I know I'm very of the time that I have to finish within 30 minutes. I'm finishing in 30 minutes.
No, it's
So
okay.
in
It's
our
okay.
research, which was the title of this particular presentation as well, we study whatever is published and whatever is available in RPA until 2020 beginning, actually until 2029, 2019. And we discover that there are five themes or five challenges the RPA domains are facing now. A, the benefit realization. B, the current technology limitation. C, the methodologies available for RPA. D, or number four, is organization readiness. I think that was the question number one. And number five, or E, is the RPA capability, which is question number five, or question number two from the audience. So let's quickly go through, and I say quickly means because I really like to have your discussion in this part. So what are these 15 challenges? We group these challenges under each of the five themes. So under benefits, we have challenge in terms of support for benefit realization. And are there any comprehensive matrices available to measure the RPA benefits? The second theme, which is readiness, we have identified two challenges which we propose and to the global research community is, are there any models for organizational readiness assessment? How do we assess that we are RPA ready? How do we assess that our processes are RPA ready? And mechanisms for infrastructure assessment. what kind of issue we need to worry about when we are going ahead with the RPA decision. What are the infrastructure problems? What are the operational issues? What are the organizational issues? The third theme, which is the capability, is what are the capability assessment? It is the issue with related to human resource development, the technical requirements, the technical infrastructure development, and what are the maximization requirements of analytical capabilities. So how do we move from um, attended to unattended bots? How do we move from currently mimicking just the steps to actually making human decisions? The fourth challenge or fourth category is about methodologies, right? That was the question about change management and stuff. Like, how do we introduce automation to organizations so then we have effective adoption? How do we provide management mechanisms to support for implementation? The project management approaches for support for mechanism, right? Then the most important, which I'm really interested in, is what are the critical success factors, right? What works, what will not work, what are the key components, and then what are the social technical implications. And of course the hardcore critical, who are people who are from computer science in this audience, will be more interested in these challenges in terms of what are the techniques for task selection. So currently, and I'll discuss this in each one of them in a minute, right? What are the systematic design development and evolution approaches? Do we need to have a new software development methodologies for designing automation, or the current software development approaches will work, right? What is the seamless handling of exceptions, right? And that goes to automation intelligence. And then techniques of managing scalability. How do we manage multiple bots working together? And then proactive monitoring and control. So let's unpack each one of them quickly. And I say quickly means I will be quick, right? So the first challenge, support for benefit realization. Very important management concept, which is called the business value of information technology itself, is a very uncleared area to date. Organization implement information technology now to increase their revenues, increase their market penetration, right, cost, etc. But we don't have methods, we don't have guidelines, we don't have matrices to assess exactly the impact of benefits, right? The second thing is that can we guarantee? So currently we can't guarantee RPA benefits. There are no matrices, there are no methods of like. Benefit realization depends on number of organizational factors, not just a tool. Benefits can come from various issues, from various contexts, and benefit can be a very well designed system may not produce the benefit because of the contextual issues, right? And of course, there are no guidelines today or best practices available in order to tell organizations that how they can actually enjoy the benefits once they implement an automated solutions like RPA. All right. So challenge number two is about matrices for benefits. So currently, how do they measure benefits? Reduction in time, reduction in cost, reduction in error, and reduction in human resources. Now, these are traditional operations management efficiency measures, right? But in our evidence and our experience, we talk that RPA benefits are not just limited to these mechanical elements of cost, time, and human resource reduction, right? So one of the promise RPA talks about that employee need not to do the mundane, not value addition tasks, but they can actually spend their save time in terms of creative activities. That is very vague. What is a creative activity, right? So I'm a clerk. My job is to process invoices every day. Now you put a robot next to me. My job is 80% done by a robot. What do I do now, right? Organizations really don't have an idea in terms of how to do that, right? um, how exactly this save time of the employee is going to be used to be more productive. And that is the one which actually leads to employee resistance, because the employee does not have work. Then they get scared. When they get scared, they feel that they will be redundant, and when they are redundant, they might be fired in no time. How do we solve them? And by the way, these are research questions for all of you to think and definitely look forward to further discussions if you are interested in more research here. Okay, next one is the challenge number 3, which is the models for organizational readiness and assessment. Okay, organizations require RPA readiness and maturity assessment framework. So, for example, let's take the example of business process management or software development. So, we have software development maturity models like CMMI, capacity maturity models, measurement model. We have BPM maturity model, which will help an organization to understand that what is their current status of process maturity, so that they can develop the right methodology to go to the next level of process improvement. Unfortunately, we do not have solutions to assess the current automation maturity, right, of organizations, right? So we need methods to determine the potential opportunities, potential barriers, and how to optimize our resource utilizations, and what will be the next, or what will be the components of a RPA or automation readiness maturity. The challenge number 4 is about the mechanism for infrastructure assessment. So technology infrastructure is important because robotic process automation or any digital transformation works with digital data, digital technologies, right? So RPA implementation currently are getting um, heavily influenced because of data quality issue, right? um, the interoperability issue. What is interoperability? Now, if you realize that in that video, and it was a very nice video, picture perfect video, obviously in reality things don't work in that way. So we have multiple applications in organization, multiple systems, and your robotic process automation solution is actually grabbing information or data from different applications. Each application will have a different way of interfacing with the application functions. This leads to interoperability problems, right? The security risks, right? Can my bot be hacked? If it's a software, end of the day, is available to the internet, right? And these are the concerns raised by many organizations, right, when we were discussing about during this data collection. So we need models to assess the composition of organizational technology infrastructure to support the RPA implementation. Non-existence today. Challenge number 5 is about organizational capability assessment, right? Just like we don't have organizational maturity assessment model, we also don't have the capability assessment models currently. We do not understand the complex interaction between organizational context and how it affects the RPA capabilities. For example, the gender or the demographics of the workforce, how does it affect the RPA capabilities? The RPA designers, their experiences, what's really what will really work, what will not work, right? The how to develop the roadmap, the strategy for RPA program so it consistently increase over the period of time. So currently this area lacks severely, completely vendor dependent, right? The challenge number 6 is about maximizing the analytical capability. All right, so that's an interesting one. We start collecting our data and start talking to people believing that organizations are very heavily implementing RPA to make their decisions and bots are making decisions. Reality is not the case. And I mentioned this point before as well, that most organizations are still in what we call early adopter stage. Most bots are proof of concept. And very interestingly, I was talking to a big bank about 2 weeks back. The pandemic actually brought very positive results to automation adoption, right? Because managers did not have an option to delay automation, right? So they had to move out of proof of concept, right? And they went ahead with full production bots and introduced the bots, right? But still the bots are not having analytical capabilities. Still they are doing very simple copy, pasting, printing, emailing, screen scrapping sort of work. So primary focus of most of the bots today is let's solve a repetitive non-value addition, cost reduction, time reduction, or head count reduction kind of design. What are we lacking? Do we have the right machine learning algorithms to make the bot intelligent? Well, there is a work going on, and it's a very interesting area which one can work. Then challenge number 7, methodological support for adoption. So organization adoption are still built on traditional change management model, which are not working. 50% failure rate, high employment resistance to change are evidence enough to say that our current change management models do not suit automation type of systems design and implementation concepts. Um, so we need further synthesis of all the recommendations and proposed approaches for RPA adoptions and to develop new models for change and adoption. Then, of course, the support for implementation. Currently, if you look at uh, vendors dictate implementation approaches or consultant dictate the implementation approaches. Now, these are not customized. These are not designed for a specific organization for a specific concept. Most implementation, I would say 100% implementation, what you call it, the agile project management approach, proof of concepts type of implementation, and lacks the large scale enterprise lifecycle aspects of implementation methodology. So, yes, you run one bot or one process or one application, but what we scale it up to 100 bots. Now you have two workforces together. You have the human workforce and you have got digital workforce. You have got digital robots, our digital workforce, trying to do the organizational processes. So what will be my operations management of these 100 bots working independently, right? And what if these 100 bots are all unattended? What is the governance for that? So challenge number 7 is the CSF. So any software, any IT system, we always are very interested in is critical success factors. So current focus of organization is, hey, let's produce visible outcome, low hanging fruits to exhibit short term benefits. Okay, yes, is a good strategy for a new technology, but there's a general lack of clearly defined frameworks to understand and identify which factors will lead to either success or failures of automation technologies, right? So far, there's a limited attention issues such as process complexity. So, since we are doing proof of concept, very simple, very easy to understand processes, the time process become complex is the time automation become also complex, right? We don't understand the process context as well, right? So example, what will happen if we have so if you remember in operations management we have this concept called ABC type of process. Like B process will be moderate quantity, moderate complexity. C process will be very low complexity, but number will be high. A will be highly complex but highly important. So how do we handle, can the automation handle the mission critical aspects? Challenge number 10 is about while RPA is rapidly growing, the challenge is implementation brings forth of the workforce needs must be better understood and managed. Right? Uh, the organizations, and I think that was question number 2 or question number 1 as well. We spoke to the CEOs and organization and the process owners, and one of the thing which actually came out of our data was that most organizations are actually going for automation, what you call the industry pressure. Oh, my competitor is doing RPA, so we have to do RPA as well, right? No, it doesn't work in that way, right? Each organization is different. Each organization contexts are different, right? People will have to develop the strategy, understand the social technical implications. Then automation fad. Um, Well, let's do automation. Why we need to do automation? Human trust is another issue, right? Uh, 50% of my work is done by a bot, which is a computer next to me. I don't know how is it doing, whether it's going to do accurate job or not. So how to build trust between the software and a human, and social economic well-being, right? The resistance to change, and finally the human capability, which is how do we train our current workforce so they will be automation ready. And then that goes to a very interesting discussion. So of course, to work with automation you have to have certain levels of intelligence. Do we know the methods or training programs to actually enhance that level of intelligence? What about people who do not have that level of intelligence? What about people who may not hit that level of information, or what you call the intelligent quotient? How do we develop programs for their human capability development? All right, moving on. So, challenge number 11 is about techniques of task selection. And these are the technical issues. How do we choose the right process, right? Currently, most focus is it must be high volume, repetitive, mundane, non-validating attributes. Not necessarily, right? The absence of design principles of selecting candidate tasks, right, is missing right now. Most of the time, processes are selected based on gut feeling or management decision, not based on actual impact on outcome. Current technologies are vendor focused, right? And they have their own bias. A vendor will always try to produce results as fast as possible so that management feel better without understanding the actual value of that process or automation. So our current evidence from our current case study suggests that process improvement prior to task improvement produce high effective results. And I think you may have to bring what Professor Hayo Rajal must have discussed in last lecture here. That when we do process automation, we look at the process from point A to point B, end-to-end process, right? But when we do robotic process automation, we actually just select one of the activity in a process, and then we try to improve its task capability by bringing robots. And that's, yes, it will work for that particular activity, but then if you increase the outcome of one activity, that will produce more outcome. If we don't have the next inline activity as efficient as the first activity, then we create a bottleneck, which is called the theory of constraint, right? So currently organizations are only looking at that very myopic focus. They're not looking at the whole process impact of RPA. Challenge number 12 is systematic design and development and evaluation. So bot design blueprints will capture human actions to accomplish a task. So what organizations do currently, for example, if you're a UI path user, then you have a document, what you call mapping system. They call it PDD, process design document. They try to mimic or write down the steps in the process, and that's what it is, right? So largely is a manual effort, very tedious. You need to understand, interview the guy, observe the person, how is he doing, and then do the process. So it's very difficult, right, for launching a bot at the large scale operation. That's what the issue against our evidence of scalability. So when we talk about our research work, we are looking at how process mining can be used to actually identify the candidate processes. So my colleague like Sandra Lehmans and Mo Wen, they have done quite significant amount of work in that area to use digital data, which is the event logs, and then develop or use the technique called process mining. And then from process mining, we should be able to create what you call the automated process models, which can be executed better. Challenge number 13 and 14 are seamless handling of exceptions and techniques of managing scalability. Okay, challenge 13 is the most interesting from a very technical perspective because uh, a bot does not have the same capability as a human to handle exceptions to the rule. So, how the bot should behave when there is a business rule change, when there is a special case forwarded to a bot. The bot does not know how to handle a case, right? Okay, another problem with the bot is they work with graphical user interface of applications. So, for example, if I'm opening my application on a 27-inch monitor, the graphical user interface coordinates will be different compared to if I'm opening the same application into a laptop, a 13-inch monitor. So the bot is designed to understand the what we call the screen coordinates to identify that particular control on the GUI. So if the bot cannot find that GUI element because of the change in the interface, the bot is not going to find the data, input data, and bot is not going to perform and throw an exception. All right, so how do we solve that problem? Right? How the system interfaces can be managed. In the similar manner, if you look at the challenge number 14 is okay, so currently we are small scale, we are running one, two, or three bots, right? Bot deployments perform very well because we just need not to worry about. But as I said, let's scale the bots to have 50% of operation done by the bots. Then how do we actually go back to challenge number 13 and challenge number 12? What will be the model? What will be the design? What will be the methodology to actually make them scalable, monitorable? And the last challenge in RPA is the proactive monitoring and control. The recent advancement in RPA, yes, this you can have the bot, what do you call it, the bot monitoring control management interfaces now. So that technology has been evolved in the last 6 months. Um, a human is still requires to monitor bot performance. Bot itself cannot monitor its performance itself. We currently have limited capability to handle the changes, and the risk of um, bot generating incorrect result is still high because of various data quality, data accessibility, right? Sort of elements which leads to the bot's health. Okay, so going on, what we have done so far. So we do have a non-vendor bias life cycle, which is in the proposed stage. So it is something which we designed based on the BPM life cycle model. So the first stage, we'd say that organizations look at the identification. So how and which task of a process are the most suitable for RPA and how to identify them. And we recommend using technologies such as process mining, right, to do this kind of work to increase the efficiency, productivity of bot task identification. Once we identify the candidate task in a process, the second, of course, the benefit is that process mining will give us an end-to-end process overview rather than just looking at the task overview. Second, how do we design the bot? So how do we actually restructure and write the rules in a way that it can be expandable, it can be manageable on the future, right? Can the bot write the rules itself, or the rules still have to be written by themselves? So that is the area which we are investigating using machine learning. So if similar cases been done in the past, then how, based on our previous data, we can actually develop new rules without having human intervention. The third stage of RPA lifecycle is production and testing. Automated testing of the bot, right, before we actually move them out from production. The test cases, right, how do we actually generate the test cases? And finally, the fourth stage of RPA lifecycle we propose is looking at the execution, that how the bots can actually cope with the runtime exceptions. For example, a new invoice or a new case comes in which bots has not handled before, so rather than passing that particular invoice to the human to make a decision, how to actually make his own, make a decision on his own, right? So again, we're looking at more cognitive intelligence, right, sort of area. Or for example, if you look at my previous slide, I said, what if the XY coordinate or change? So if I open the same application on different windows or multiple configurations, bot should be able to identify the elements on his own by scanning the screen. And the final stage is the maintenance, right? So the questions are, how do we retire a bot? How do we know that bot lifecycle is completed? When do we need to write the new code? When we need to write, redesign the bot, right? So what will be the criterias, right, of capturing policies, redesigning the bot, right? And then, of course, it goes to the lifecycle stage. Okay. And on top of everything is the issues which are more enterprise management issues like governance of the board, the guidelines and frameworks, adoption, etc., and deployment. All right. So the next area is our work in the robotic process automation benefits. So that's one of our PhD students together with Dr. Vasna Bandara, myself, and Dennis Thomas. We published at the European Conference of Information System this year. Is about RPA benefits. So what we have done here is we look at different stages of RPA lifecycle. For example, the pre-introduction, the introduction, and operational um, life cycles of robots. And then we further identified from our data that organizations actually not only have the anticipated benefit, but they also have what you call unanticipated benefit, which were never realized before they implemented it. So we do have a um, list of different benefits which can be achieved at different stages of the RPA life cycles from our empirical evidence. And you can always download this paper from QUT ePrints, or feel free to contact me. I'm happy to share with you. Those who are interested in technology benefit sort of research. So a bit more technical work is about how to use process mining, and that is the work we are currently is work in progress. So this is the first outcome published at ER 20 this year. So how we actually look at using process mining to actually develop what you call the robotic process mining. So process mining is for what we human use, and then we are actually thinking of uh, developing process mining for robots. So robot RPA process logs, then business process event log coming together. We call it the conceptual mapping, and then uh, we develop this technology solution later on. So if you're interested in technical details, I'm happy to connect you to the right people, Sandra Lehmans, and our head of school, Arthur Hofstede, and others. All right. The next one is, of course, the change management issue and human and RPA trust. So that is the work which I have done with my colleague Professor Mo Wen in How to Trust a Bot, and discuss and publish this paper in this year's BPM conference. So what we looked at that how human users behave when they interact with a RPA application. So yes, we identified quite a few already known factors like well, yes, for IT, bot is an IT artifact, and just like any other IT solution, IT application, it does require a robust change management. Um, it must require mutual understanding between operations teams and RPA designer, which is same as the or management or users and system developers. Quality assurance and testing, we said, is fine, and data consistency was critical, and of course, effective training and technical support. We know that. But we discover something new as well, right? So, for example, the approach we introduce an RPA solution to organization is very different, right? So, unlike a software application, let's say I'm introducing an ERP solution in organization, is pretty straightforward. Robots are different. Robot carries an intellectual pressure on the users, right? So the way we introduce is different, right? uh, Organization which was a success story, they actually created multiple gaming bots, and they allow their staff to interact with the bots to reduce the fear of bots. And once they understood that what is the capability of a robotic solution, they were given the actual bot is going to work together with them on multiple tasks the human are currently performing. And we identified that the resistance to change against the bot was very, very low in that case. Then training of bot as well as the user. So yes, we train the bot to understand how the bot should work, but at the same time, people ignore the end user training. That's a must. Another important part was the bot designer. So bot designer not need to be a software developer. It need not to be a programmer. Any employee which has got a bit of an analytical brain can actually develop his own bot, right? So the bot designer and process business analyst skills, right, and comprehension of the whole process end to end is very important. Again, organization they were successful in their RPA implementation. They actually look at the process perspective. The organization who only focus on a tiny elements of a process face major problem. All right, building awareness is very important. And one of the interesting finding was that most organizations try to personify their robots. What does personification mean? So they introduce bot as such. Hello, everybody. From today onward, John is going to work with you. Who is John? John is this computer. Now, the time you give that computer an entity, a persona of John or Tracy or Ahmed, the human brain started to create a false expectation that the bot has got the same intellectual capability as the human, and that create exceptional fallacy, right? And of course, well defined processes are key, is very important, and I'll prove my point how and what. So the reality today is RPA is incapable of automating complex, long running, very complicated processes. A lightweight solution to automate certain kinds of manual tasks is their capability, and they need support coordination with existing BPM and IT systems. Reality is that the bot or RPA currently lacks of unbiased guidance on RPA suitability assessment and process selection. They are based on personal decisions and vendor bias decisions. We need solution for that. And currently, the reality is that there are no comprehensive RPA governance principle in existence. All right, so what is the future outlook? I like to summarize my discussion here. Process view: any organization that is interested in going for RPA, we highly recommend that you should perform your business process improvement before RPA, and do not ignore the existing business process principle. And the proof is this. This is a report which is really, really new. It was published on 1st of December this month. And this report, right, talks about 1 in 4 staff says that due to COVID and pandemic, their organization got rid of their staff. They made a lot of redundancy, but as a result, badly designed processes actually created more work for them than solution. So 40% staff says that business processes made their job more challenging because they were really badly designed process. So yes, organization did implement RPA, but when your process is bad, RPA can only do so much, right? 36% says that they wasted their time with business processes to fix them, and 25% says that even wanted to quit their jobs because of the bad business processes due to COVID problems, right? The second recommendation we says is that people view, right? We need new change management models so that this interaction between RPA and its bots should be viewed as a digital colleague and build confidence and trust between. And the third we talk about is the organizational view in terms of building RPA governance and trust, right? And this is what you call the AB's Global COVID Technology Survey, 1st of December 2020, right? 64% respondent companies were quick to adopt the new technologies, right, as robots and process for the first time during the lockdown to help alleviate um, their system operation. So 64%. So if you look at one side, there's a high growth, but the second side, if you look at here, the business process management issue really makes or break your RPA system. Okay, so finally, people who would like to any person in audience interested in publishing something in RPA. So we have this special issue with one of a top journal. It's called Computer in Industry. The timelines and everything. I will share my slides with Mahindra, and I will be shared to the audience as ITS perceived. Please feel free to talk and submit something if you like about in those challenges I discussed. And finally, thank you very much for your kind attendance and listening to my talk today. Few acknowledgements. Humble gratitude to Dr. Mahendrawati and ITS for providing this opportunity for me to talk to you today. I know it was a long, boring discussion. And of course, my colleague, my groups, uh, Vasna Bandara, Mowen, and Ronak Mathur for bringing the industry perspective to this discussion today. As I said, it is ongoing research. We don't have solutions and answers to all of the questions, but I'm happy to take any questions as of now.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm sorry I have to make you go through very quickly. It's just that the interest of time. So actually, we have a few questions. If you don't mind, I will read it out quickly. First one is from Amna. Amna is actually our colleague that is studying in Ireland at the moment. She's asking in terms of BPM technology, including RPA. I suppose that we are researching, the industry can research it faster with concrete outcomes. So it seems that we cannot win the race. Do you have any suggestions to deal with this situation?
Hi Anna, thanks for a question, and of course, is an interesting question from an information systems perspective. And I agree 50%, and I disagree with the understanding 50% as well. So why I agree? Traditionally, I agree that industry was always ahead of information system researchers, and they develop solutions, and then we go back as an information system researcher and try to understand how those solutions work. But um, the recent changes in terms of the transdisciplinarity features of information systems have actually changed the perspective of IS research community, and I believe that you are IS researcher. For example, in our group, we have a very active RPA research community, very active. We test RPA solutions. We have a very interdisciplinary group of researchers from computer science, from information systems, and even from psychology and behavioral sciences. So we work as team. And the challenges, if you notice, we discuss here are not from academic environment. The 15 challenges I discussed there were actually from the industrial experiences. My recommendation is that if you are interested in RPA research, you may be better off to go to the field, have the RPA tools installed on your own systems, typical experimental research, get your hands dirty, right? Um, you are interested in optical character recognition, all right? There is AB, which is doing a lot of investment in artificial intelligence, but does not stop us as researcher to come up with something which is new. So we are creative as researcher. I think that's our forte. We are not biased with any technology. That's another strong point. Third, what we lack here is we get scared of experimentation, and that is the fundamental of research. I think from an IS community perspective, um, I believe that we need to go ahead with that approach. So that's my approach. That's what we do at QUT, and I think we have been quite well ahead of industry. So if you notice, um, the work done by Arthur Hofstede, which is our head of his school, actually created the whole paradigm of workflow patterns and BPMS. So if any BPMS software is designed, it's designed with workflow pattern, which is Arthur Hofstede's work. If you look at process mining, companies like Celonis, which is the world leader in process mining, is actually get advice from Professor Will van der Last. Um, Sander Lemans, which is my colleague, his work in process mining is groundbreaking, right? And if you look at the information systems perspective, names from other colleagues like my other colleague Mo Wen's perspective, the whole concept of data quality, right, is taken by the industry to understand that how do we solve these data quality problems. If you take information system perspective, the whole concept of digital transformation industry 4.0, the name comes to mind is Michael Roseman, right? So that is the 50%, which I say that I'm kind of, well, why don't you take that approach rather than followers? Why don't we become the leader by doing a more experimental thinking out of the box, giving new perspective? I hope I answer your
Very
question.
inspiring. Thank you. Okay. There are questions from Pak Fatah and also from Dito again, but I will hold it up for other. So I will read out Pak Sih Anggoro question first. Is there any equilibrium point that show the optimum of investment of RPA versus optimum benefit that will be obtained?
This is a brilliant question. This is a brilliant question. And I don't have a brilliant answer to that question. The reason is, uh, the reason is a bit more practical as well as philosophical. Uh, the technology has always been a tool to drive organizational objective, and I think you will agree with me. Um, 1999, a Harvard Business Review article published by Professor Nicholas Carr, and it talks about it doesn't matter. So the title of the article is IT doesn't matter. And Carr's argument was that technology is a commodity, and organizations drive their strategic objectives as a by not only the technology but their strategies, their innovation, and their intellectual capital. So that was the gist of the article. So that was 1999. Now, what is the situation in 2000? So the difference is now that organization actually develop the technology, their strategies around based around the technology solution. So like the example of gig economy, like um, Uber and Facebook and Google and uh, Food Panda and Deliveroo and whatsoever. So if you take the technology out, there is no business, right? So going back to your question, and I said it's a brilliant question, and that's exactly what we're talking about in terms of benefit realization models. IT business value, if you do your own literature review, you will see that we don't have any model to date to measure this equilibrium which you talk about. How much investment will lead to how much benefit? Because benefit can come from contextual issue. There were organizations who made thundering profits because of COVID. Do you agree with that? And there are organizations who are out of business because of COVID. Fantastic, very well designed, brilliant organization not doing anymore because of COVID. And really badly designed organization are doing so well because of this contextual impact of COVID. So it's very difficult question. Honestly, we don't have an answer to this question. I'm happy to talk to you more detail. Drop me an email.
All
Drop
right.
it, contact Mahindra, and we definitely you can join our program. We are researching in this area quite heavily.
That's a good idea. Okay, so there's also another question from Ika. According to global COVID survey shown in previous slide, 70% employees need a communication tool. How's the possibility of RPA can help such matter?
I missed the last part of your question, Mahindra. Sorry.
So uh, the COVID survey says that 70% employees need communication tool. How's the
Yeah.
possibility of RPA can
Mhm.
help such matter?
So I draw my conclusion from a recent uh, case study which I'm writing. That was from a country which you should be knowing, is a global insurance company, a very big name in insurance industry. So they implemented RPA technology as a proof of concept in Sri Lanka because that was a very small operation in there compared to global operation. And I think that example I quoted in my discussion as well. Um, During the COVID, the country locked down for a period of 3 months as full-fledged curfew. Nobody is allowed to get out of the office, their houses. Only the essential worker staff. They have about 300,000 customers, and all of these customers had their health policies, and they all required solutions from their insurance service provider. So, how RPA helped them? Of course, they operationalize their design team to work remotely. So that's the benefit number one. That's why the cloud technologies are extremely important when it comes to RPA. The design team was able to implement 7 software bots in the first couple of weeks, right? Without any staff available, they implemented a chatbot. So their clients were still be able to come to their website, had their interaction with the chatbot, and the chatbot played a major role to drive the communication between the organization, the systems, and the client. Today, the operations are much more stable. Their experience of that small operations of 300,000 customers is now going to be copy and pasted to their global operations. That's what my understanding is, right? And that proves that yes, RPA has the capability as long as we design, we operationalize, and strategize the strategy in a way that it actually produce meaningful results rather than just using as a fashion. I'm not sure whether I answer your question, but I think that's what my comment would be, Eka.
Thank you. And last question is from Pak Fatah, and also my questions. Just to make sure, you mentioned that a person who designed RPA, I mean, anybody can design it, even from a business analyst. But Pak Fatah
Yeah.
asked, a person who designed RPA shall be understand process interaction or BPM rather than IT programming.
um, again is a very very good question, and thanks for asking that, and that's what the whole focus of my couple of last slides. Um, so when we study organizations who implemented RPA, there were two groups. There were clearly two groups of organizations. Organizations who actually adopted RPA without having this process perspective. They were intelligent people. They were very intelligent people. They were able to design the bots. They were able to execute the bots without much of a difficulty. But as I explained, so if you think of a process model, so you have activity A, B, C, D, E. Let's say we have a sequence process with A, B, C, D. So A's output will feed into B's input. B's output will lead to C's input, C to D, and D to E. Right? Very simple scenario, very sequential flow. So my currently, I believe that activity A is very bad. It's the worst of all. Okay. So because of that, we have got so much of resources idle in activity B, C, D, and E because the output is very, very small. So we implemented RPA to improve activity A. Now you that did improve the task performance became fantastic. Suddenly activity A started to produce 3000% outcome, right? So what happened to the efficiency of previously very efficient activity B? Now that look really bad. Then if you automate activity B, then activity C become inefficient. If you go back to my slide number 2, when you talk about the Bill Gates argument of efficiency inefficiency, that's exactly what we're talking about. Theory of a constraint, right? So to your question, that how process perspective is important. If we do not improve our processes before we go for automation, this theory of a constraint, this bottleneck problem, these exceptions problems will hit us hard at the middle of our bot implementation design and execution. So a better approach will be perform your process improvement activities first to identify the real problems in the process, then determine which tasks require automation, and that will give us better results. And that's what the evidence from our data and evidence from our case studies which we studied has been so far.
Okay, thank you very much. I think um, in the interest of time, I think there is actually one person that would like to ask, but I will ask him to contact you directly
Sure.
because this is already quite a long time for you to entertain us. Thank
Thanks a
you
lot.
very much for very insightful discussion and sharing. There are so many questions actually, so much interest in this talk of yours. So please don't feel if next time we would like to discuss in more detail, I hope that you will still be willing to do so.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Mahindra. I hope that it was not a very boring
No, no, no,
discussion.
not at all. It's just that
Yes,
I'm worried about the time, really, because we have you from 3 hours ago. So thank you
but
very much. Pak Mujahidin, would you like to say anything, or can I close this session? Okay. If not, that thank you very much again, Dr. Hansa. It has been a really nice pleasure to have you to share this wonderful new topic. Hopefully, it will inspire so many new researchers on this area, especially in Indonesia. And to all the audience, this recording will be made available through our channel. And also, I will be delivering the materials that Dr. Syed will be given to me, will give to me through emails, and you can download it later. That would be okay, right, Dr. Syed?
yes, that will be fine. I'm going to send you the link for my presentation
Thank you so
uh,
much.
right after once we conclude because it's a bit of a large file.
Okay,
That's why I couldn't email you.
sure. Thank you
Uh,
very
you please feel free to share and uh, the content of this discussion with the audience.
much.
I'm humble and I'm extremely overwhelmed with the such a large audience listening to my talk today. Thank
Yes,
you
at
very
one
much
point there was
for
172 people attending. So yes, that's a very large for our webinar as well. Thank you very much. Oke,
thank you much for everybody.
Bapak Ibu, saudara sekalian, terima kasih sudah bersama kami dari jam 8.30 tadi. I thank you all and wishing you that you will come again for our next lecture. And the lecture from Dr. Syed will be emailed to you soon. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
So I'll be in touch with you, I guess, through email. I have so many ideas that I would like to discuss again.
Of course, anytime.
Yeah,
And as I said, that I'm very keen to have research in specifically in growing economies such as Indonesia?
Yeah, I think the next one would be very interesting because you have a very specific area of research in public sector. I think that is really, really something that we need to touch upon in Indonesia. So I'm already thinking that maybe I would invite you to share your results or any idea on how to the success stories or challenges and how you do. I think you touch upon leadership as well, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, in terms of information systems, Dr. Mahindra, we did do a lot of research, and our understanding is that any digital transformation, specifically in public sector organization, leadership is one of the most um, important factor.
Yeah.
Uh, it's important to have alignment with different types of leaders